This is the Fix Your Sciatica podcast. Let's talk about disability insurance. What is it? Why do we need it in the first place? Back in 2019, I met today's guest, Gretta, and we had the opportunity to talk a little bit more about disability insurance. And as an entrepreneur, I knew that if I couldn't work, I needed something in place that would allow me to actually cover my expenses should I be physically unable to work because of some sort of accident. And it was a very easy process. And then right after I signed and submitted my first payment, I almost got hit by a bus. And it made me really be thankful that I had this policy in place. So in the event that something should happen, it protects us. And that's the magic about insurance. And so today I have Gretta Zutz, insurance professional, and she was very kind enough to share her expertise in understanding what disability insurance is and how it can help you in the event that you are unable to work because of the pain that you're going through. So Gretta, thank you so much for being on today's episode.
Thank you for asking, Dr. Mack. And also to work with you in any capacity is just always a joy. I'm definitely not a professional podcaster, not a professional speaker. So I have a lot of butterflies in my stomach. I might talk really fast. I might lapse back into that New York, even though I'm from the Midwest originally. But you just said an amazing opener. And there's one thing you said in there that I think innately everyone thinks, which is a disability due to an accident. And then the bus thing happened. Thankfully didn't happen anything that, left you except maybe a little shaken. But I think that's one thing. I'm going to throw a couple of statistics out there that I don't think the average consumer or even financial planner or investment advisor or CPA, estate attorney, business attorney. Why am I naming those professions? Those are probably the people in a lot of entrepreneurs or W-2 employees' lives that they look to for advice. So sometimes clients will say, or prospects will say, why has no one brought this up to me before? It's just not in everyone's vernacular. And unfortunately, the US as a whole, the government does not want to take care of you if you're disabled. If you disagree with that, listen to these statistics. For you to go on permanent Social Security disability, that's what we pay into when taxes are taken out of our paychecks. You get your top line and then you pay after you have the taxes taken out, or you file as a business owner, you pay the government, all that money goes away. Well, part of that's going into the program for disability through the US government. So some clients will say, well, I'm taken care of by just being a US citizen and paying into the system. Listen to this stat, Dr. Mack. Only a third of all the claims that come into the Social Security Department actually get approved. Okay, so if I'm the lucky third, if I get hurt or disabled by accident, let's come back to that in a second. Come back to that statement in a second. I have a 33% chance of it getting approved for benefit. And then, do you want to guess what the max amount of benefit I'm going to get from the government is? Throw a guess out there. Monthly. So I'm disabled. Take a guess.
Well, I'll tell you, I just looking at even because I always wonder what my unemployment insurance is too. And I was looking at the scale, and interestingly enough, I think unemployment only pays out, say about if you're even the highest earner, it's about $450 a week. And so with disability, I'm assuming you're probably you're getting less on a weekly basis, which would mean that you're probably getting, I don't know, maybe $1,500 tops. Possibly.
About $1,200 a month.
Wow.
And then listen to this verbiage. So I am going to read from a piece of paper known as the IRS document. I will not read the whole thing, but I will read a sentence. So you're a third of a chance of you get hurt, something happens, a third of a chance of actually getting compensation to support your family. Then if you're that lucky third, which doesn't feel so lucky, now you're only getting $1,200 a month. And then listen to this. If between $25,000 and $34,000, you have to pay income tax upon the 50% of your benefits, more than $34,000 up to 84% of your benefits may be taxable.
So that means you're getting taxed on the benefit that you're receiving.
Very possibly. So it's no wonder going into this next statistic, and I'm gonna bring the listeners down and then I'm gonna bring them back up. This is a sad statistic in my mind of what we're dealing with in the country, and especially I'm a Miami resident now, but I was a New York resident for 21 years, New York City and Jersey for a little bit in there is where I met you. But 65% of individuals living in poverty that have been in poverty for at least 3 years had a triggering event that caused them to not be able to work. So sad.
You said 60%?
65%.
Oh, 65%. Wow, that's huge.
And a lot of us think if we are W-2 employees or if we are entrepreneurs that have a certain type of liability insurance, we think, well, if I get hurt on the job, my workers' comp will come in. And here's another shocking statistic. In 2016 alone, less than 1% of all workers were actually compensated for a job-related activity. An accident that happened on the job, so they could no longer work, and the workers' comp actually paid out. Kind of shocking. So I'm not saying your job doesn't care about you. I'm not saying work benefits aren't great. But if you're a W-2 employee listening to this, so if you're someone who has a salary and has a stable paycheck, almost a guaranteed paycheck, my test for you is, what is the language? You might know your health insurance, you might know your retirement benefits. What's the language? And your open enrollment might have just happened in June. It might be coming up in November. Those are the two biggest times open enrollment happens for group plans. I want to challenge you, if you are that salaried employee, to read the deep language, the actual paragraph that says, what is my disability benefit? How do I get it? How disabled do I have to be? And how long would it pay for? So those three things, it's called the definition of disability. That's important for everyone. How long would it pay for? How much would it be? If you don't know the answer to that and you are working for a job and either your job is paying for the benefit or you're paying it into it yourself, that's the challenge. As a W-2 employee, you should know that language. And if you can't get the answers, email your HR or your payroll company and just ask them, what are those three things? What's the definition of what it means to be disabled? Now that we have all these shocking statistics that can be a little scary, now let's take some action. Let's find out what it is. How would it actually pay? Do I have to be catatonic? Do I have to lose a limb? Or something like me during COVID, when I got the vaccine shot, I was postpartum. I had just had a baby. I talk for a living. I lost my voice for 3.5 weeks. So my choices were either my voice comes back, I hire someone to do my job, I figure out working with a disability, or luckily I have disability insurance, and had that disability lasted a couple more weeks, I would have put in a claim and I would have received enough benefit, not $1,200 taxable. I would have received, I'll share the number with you, $21,000 a month tax-free until I'm age 70 and I'm still allowed to work in another profession. So what I did there is I figured out what's my definition of disability with my own policy, how much would I get, and how long would it last for? We're going to come back to those three things. We'll talk about entrepreneurs in a second, but that's my challenge for anyone working a W-2 job. I don't care if you're making 20 grand or 2 million a year.
This brings up a really interesting question because I think that, we're talking about insurance. Now there's various different kinds of insurance, but and a lot of times people are like paying into insurance policies and they like have no idea what it is. And so can you just from a blanket statement, tell us a little bit more about just what insurance is? We don't have to go into the specifics of life, health and all that, but what is insurance and how does it work?
One sentence. Insurance is the transference of risk. How much do I feel that, okay, here's an example. My husband and I, we lived in Brooklyn. We had the worst car, actually. The worst car, Dr. Mack, not even worth anything. And something happened where a car chase came down the street the wrong way in Brooklyn. And this driver dinged every single car on the street, new Lexuses, new Teslas, except for our junk car. And we were watching it happen. It was terrifying. The driver was safe. The police were safe. No one got hurt. But all the neighbors were outside watching this crazy thing happen. And my husband and I are going, this guy's not going to hit our junky car? Of all things, we had great insurance. We wanted to get rid of it. A crazy story. But the idea that the transference of risk. Now, on the other side of that, what if you're hit by an uninsured driver? I don't know if anyone on this listening to this has had this experience. You're carrying car insurance and someone without insurance hits you or nicks your car or does something worse. What's going to happen to your premiums? What's that transfer of risk? So car insurance is one of the examples that most people can relate to, where it's like, I don't want to have to pay this bill, but thank whomever, the powers that be, that I paid this bill when a situation happens. So in one sentence, insurance is the transference of risk.
This episode is brought to you by the Sciatica Protocol. Experience pain relief directly through your phone, anytime, anywhere. Interested in learning more? Check us out at ifixyoursciatica.com/the-sciatica-protocol. Right on. That's a great definition, because it gives us an opportunity to kind of like visualize, because a lot of people, see insurance as kind of like this invisible thing where they put money into, and when they quote unquote need it, they have to meet a specific set of criteria in order to actually receive it. So let's talk a little bit more about the concept of qualifications and like how people can actually like benefit from it. Now, now obviously we have people who are insured. I have my disability insurance. You do as well. Tell us a little bit more about like what, I don't know, how would I phrase it, like timing, or like what is that like?
Yeah. Well, disability insurance as sort of like the main topic really has two houses. One is that thing we're talking about, like a group plan. So you work for a large company, usually the company's buying it almost like your health insurance, and you're either electing into the coverage, adding on the coverage. It sort of is what it is. You don't have to prove anything because they're buying it as bulk. So you can imagine, think of the other side, the insurance carrier selling it to them. They're going to sell it based on a census, how many males, how many females, age, occupation. If the whole company of Cirque du Soleil wants to buy disability insurance, I can't imagine that they have it in a way. But if a company of accountants wants to buy it, most likely they can buy it. So occupation, the census of the company, and like how much they're buying makes sense. But it's not a huge bill for a company. It's a great benefit for a company. It's a way to attract employees. And it's pretty easy. It fits into the benefits. What I have is what's called IDI, Individual Disability Insurance, also known as Individual Disability Income. So what's important in that, the main distinction is the benefit, if ever paid, is paid non-taxable. That's what I said before about getting $21,000 a month non-taxable. The rules, usually the distinction of how hurt, ill, sick you have to be, are much broader because you're paying out of pocket for the benefit. But now think of the other side of that. The insurance company is going to be very conservative in who they accept. Unfortunately, the number one thing I have to do in my job is tell people they can't buy something they want to buy when they're ready to buy it. That sucks professionally. So it is very hard. Of all the insurances out there, the different types of insurance, pet insurance, you name it, name any type of insurance. The hardest type of insurance to qualify for is going to be disability insurance. Now I'm taking the listeners back down. How depressing. That's why if you're offered it through an association, if you're offered it when you're younger, if your financial planner, your investment advisor, your CPA, someone that you trust isn't bringing it up, you should seek it out. And then know the definition between getting a quote. A quote is just me throwing any number out there. Oh, you make $100,000. We can get you 60% of that coverage. It'll pay out till you're 70. You can still work, and it'll cost $5,000 a year. That's a customary quote, but the quote has nothing to do with the offer. You need to go through all the underwriting. They're going to look at your medical records, look at your surgeries, if anything recent, me, someone who had a baby recently, they're going to want to see all of that. Was I on bed rest? I'm a first time older mom. Did I have issues during the pregnancy? Do I plan on getting pregnant again? There'll be a lot of intimate digging. So that comes back to, I would not buy this product online. I might go online and shop around for my car insurance, but this is a very intimate product, and that your details of your personal health are going to be disclosed, and they're going to find everything. If I had a client, I'll never say who it is, had a picture online smoking a cigarette, told the insurance company they didn't smoke. Guess what? There's a picture of you smoking a cigarette. So they can find anything. Anything you do online, they can find you. They will Google you. They'll know everything that you post.
Wow. All right. So yeah, we have to go through a lot of details. And going through your health history, very, very similar, like going through your health history for health insurance or disability insurance, very, very similar to going through a health history when you're speaking with your doctor. In order for anyone, whether it be an insurance person, broker, or underwriter, even a medical professional, in order for us to do our jobs properly, we need to make sure that we get all of the information, which is why it's so important for you to be able to communicate with anyone in regards to what you're dealing with. So let's talk about, I know that you said that there's a lot of various different definitions of disability.
Yes.
So getting hit by a bus, right? That's a scenario. Some of the listeners on here who are experiencing sciatica pain, for maybe not necessarily hard to figure out why, but there are points in time where they're in so much pain that they're unable to work. So can you share a couple definitions and what underwriters or policies are looking for to be able to say, this is what you would consider yourself as a disabled case?
First, I want to ask you a technical question about sciatica. Is sciatica something inherited? Like when I think of the breast cancer gene, that can be my mother, if she had that gene or had breast cancer at my age, they might ask the personal question, are you tested for that? But is there anything about sciatica that is hereditary, or is it more just the person, the lifestyle they lead, and just, their own structure?
Yeah, that's a great question. For my research, you're not usually getting it from a genetic standpoint. You're not inheriting it from your parents. It's really more of an acquired condition. So whether it be through trauma, overuse, or there's really most likely trauma and overuse, rather than getting it from your parents.
Awesome. And then are there levels to sciatica? Like when I help someone who has digestive issues and we're doing a policy for them, there might be like a level 1, I can't eat dairy, all the way up to full blown Crohn's or IBS or something more serious, colitis, that they're medicated for, where it's not a life-threatening condition, but they do have to watch it. Is sciatica like that? Are there gradients of sciatica or back issues? Okay.
Yeah. So it would expand all the way from back issues all the way down to the most intense sciatica pain. We don't have necessarily designated number levels, which I think would be great, but really a matter of it really correlates with level of disability. So you have, and we are able to measure that through pain levels, and also through levels of function. And so being able to say, this is how we can measure what you're doing on a daily basis. So there's various different tests that we can take. It's really more so survey based, that we can do. Yeah.
Great. So that helps me in answering your question, which is, with disability insurance coverage, we already know earlier is better. Using the car insurance example, different, but just kind of relative, if I buy car insurance when I have a great car driving record, when I haven't hit someone already, hopefully my rates will be better than if something like that happened. So when we talk about pre-existing conditions as it relates to income insurance or disability insurance, the level of what we call potential exclusion will matter. So if I am in underwriting, I'm talking to you right now and I'm getting disability insurance, I'm putting in an application and I'm feeling just like a level, there aren't numbers yet, but like a very zero level. I haven't talked to my doctor yet. I haven't talked to you yet. I'm having some back pain, but maybe it's just underused and I'm not like full blown to the not working level, it still might be okay, though there's very intimate questions about like, are you on disability coverage already? Like, what's your lifestyle like? How active are you? Those are part of the process in applying. So definitely doing it before you get to the point of a disability is the thing that makes sense. Once you're out of work, you're not getting any coverage. So when you come back to work, even if you're coming back part-time, the insurance company will probably say, we'll give you a quote, but we won't give you an offer. So I can't express enough that like, it sucks, but there's not a lot you can do once you're already out of work. The only thing left to you is hopefully you had some coverage before, or you're one of that 33% that can get government coverage, or you have really good savings. But if you've been able to rehab yourself and you're working with someone like you, Dr. Mack, and the whole program to get back to a good homeostasis place in your life, it is still something you can do. The insurance company might have language in the contract that says, here is an exclusion. We'll cover everything that happens to you. We'll cover everything that happens to you. Anything that could happen, not just accident, hit it by a bus, not just injury, you lost your voice due to a COVID vaccine, not just sickness. We'll cover anything that happens. And you can still work in another capacity. I always say you and I can go open that vegan cupcake shop we always wanted to. And you can still earn a living and make yourself whole. However, there might be an exclusion, maybe for a year, maybe for 2 years. Sometimes it's 5 years. What that means is they want to make sure that that body part is healed, that you're listening to your medical professionals, and then they'll probably revisit that exclusion in the time period. You will know all of this before you sign the contract. Now, sometimes that exclusion is the main reason you want the contract. So you have to sort of weigh, is it still worth spending money on it? If the thing that would cause me to probably go out physically would be my sciatica, but to your point, they're still potentially getting hit by a bus or other accident or injury. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And so in essence, got to buy it so then that way you can have it and use it if you need it versus needing and not having it. Prevention is way more valuable than cure, which then brings me to my next question is that, all right, so we have the listeners out there. We already have my answer, like, we should be able to, one of the important things is having this before anything goes wrong. For those people who are actually in pain right now, and actually turns out that they do have a disability policy, like what are the best ways for them to just get a better understanding? I think you said this earlier on today, but kind of walk us through what that's like. They're like, okay, I'm dealing with this pain. It's probably a little bit longer, but tell me a little bit more about, what can I get from my policy?
This is so relative. Like I've been doing this for over a decade, and I'll never forget one of my first disability clients was a dentist I had, my own personal dentist, like year one. He was in my mouth putting a crown on. I doesn't really hurt. And he's like making me talk while he's like numbing my mouth. So I don't think it was the best presentation, but it was a fun relationship. So he's allowed me to share this story. No one will know who he is. But I'll never forget, I went to see him and he was so nervous because he was having a twinge in his finger. And he's like, what if I can't be a dentist anymore? He was like having heart palpitations while doing my crown on me. And I was like, doctor, you have disability insurance. If something happens to you, most disability policies are written with the customary, I'd say like 90% of them have what's called a 90-day elimination period. So that means it's not short-term disability. This is long-term disability. So you have to be unable to work or perform the duties of your profession for 90 days from the start of the injury to it starting to pay out. That elimination period, if I'm buying a new policy right now, you can take a shorter elimination period. You can make the policy more affordable by taking a longer elimination period. But the customary elimination period is 90 days. And if I'm working with someone, I'm also saying to them, let's also make sure you have those 90 days of savings to pay for all your bills set aside just for that in case. So elimination period has to be fulfilled. That'll be in the contract. So you want to pull the contract, whether it's through your work or it's something you bought on your own. Pull the language from the contract. When you get injured, it might not be front of mind as you go to the doctor, but you want to make note of that day in your calendar. Maybe get the notes from the doctor that was the day, it happened today, July 13th, and this is the start of the injury. And then you can file the claim at the end of that elimination period. Customarily, it's the 90-day window. Then if you have what we consider a good policy, which means it's going to pay out and you can still open that vegan cupcake shop or, write your book about your life, still collect income in a secondary way, then it'll start to pay you the benefits. And hopefully, because you bought that policy with after-tax dollars, it's also keeping the benefit tax-free. So filing a claim, if you've purchased the insurance or your group coverage is from a reputable carrier, not Dr. Mac and Gretta Zutz insurance company, started 2023. Yeah. You want to get from a reputable carrier that's been around 200 years or 150 years, something like that, one of the big names. Those carriers are the best to deal with. There's something in our industry, which is like the Grammys or the Oscars. So fun. It's called the Doll Bar Awards. And that's the awards given to insurance carriers for the best customer service. So that's why you want to go to a carrier. If you're talking to someone like me, an insurance broker, you want to ask them, what's it like in a claim process? How easy is it? The last thing you want to do is buy this policy, have something happen to you, and then it's a nightmare to get the claim paid. So make sure that the carrier is reputable, the carrier has a good reputation, ask your agent about the ease of a claim, and then most likely it'll just be collecting doctor records, fulfilling an elimination period, and the check starts rolling in.
What an eye-opening process. And it seems complicated, but as long as you follow the steps, it makes sense. And so, we can talk all day about disability insurance and everything, but I think that this is a great intro in helping people understand what it is, but also for the folks who have disability insurance and some key points and things to consider when it comes to submitting a claim and acting a policy. So we went everything from like soup to nuts.
I'll add one more thing, which is disability policies are very customizable. I call it the pizza tracker. So just because I give someone a quote, it might be the fully loaded double XL pizza with all the toppings and all the add-ons. You can put a policy in place. You can increase the premium later on when you're making more money. The add-ons are not something everyone needs. Make sure you know what the add-ons are. You can buy just a regular cheese pizza and it can be just as good. That's all I'll leave you with.
I love it. Gretta, thank you so much for your time today. Really eye-opening. It's always a great conversation when we meet up. For the listeners out there who probably have a couple other questions that they want to get answered, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yep. Finding me on LinkedIn is always the easiest, though I'm with a firm. I really run my own business and we are in the, timing of launching our own website. So that will come very soon. So right now, finding me on LinkedIn, GrettaZutz, double Z's, Gretta Zutz on LinkedIn, or my email is GrettaZutz@financialguide.com. That's the easiest way to find me. You can direct message me there, get on my calendar through my team, and we're happy to help. We're also happy to review a policy if you currently have it won and want to just have it looked at.
Beautiful. Listeners, if you didn't get a chance to write that down, I'm actually going to put Gretta's LinkedIn info in the show notes today, so that way you can take a look at it. Gretta, thank you so much again. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Dr. Mac.
I'm so glad that we were able to talk all things insurance.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you got some help from today's podcast. And for more info, check us out at ifixyoursciatica.com. Have a fantastic and pain-free day. No patient-therapist relationship is formed by listening to this podcast. We are not providing medical advice, and all information should be confirmed by a medical provider.